There's a version of you that needs to die. Harsh, maybe, necessary, absolutely. You know exactly which version I'm talking about. The one that scrolls instead of studies, complains instead of commits, dreams big but moves small. That version of you is killing your greatness slowly, every single day. You say you want to succeed. You say you want transformation. You say you want peace, power, purpose. But are you willing to do what it takes to slaughter the parts of yourself that are holding you back? The weak version of yourself isn't some imaginary enemy. It's real, and it lives in the little decisions you make every single day. It whispers to you when the alarm goes off, telling you to hit snooze. It convinces you to break your promises to yourself. It celebrates your excuses, comforts your laziness, and feeds on your doubts. It's the part of you that's satisfied with being average, with getting by, with surviving instead of thriving. And here's the truth, that version of you must be eliminated if you ever want to step into the power you were meant to carry. Every time you tell yourself, "I'll do it tomorrow," that weak version wins. Every time you say, "I'm too tired," "It's too hard," "I'm not ready," you're letting it grow stronger. It's not your environment. It's not the people around you. It's not even your past. It's that inner voice, the soft one, the scared one, the lazy one, that you've allowed to lead for far too long. The truth is brutal, but it's the only way forward. The version of you that delays, avoids, complains, and fears. That version cannot coexist with the version of you that dominates. One of them has to die. There's no room for both. And if you want to build a life of strength, purpose, and power, then the version of you that thrives on comfort has to go. Because comfort is a lie. It's a trap that pretends to offer peace but delivers regret. You don't get to keep choosing comfort and then complain about your results. You were not born to be soft. You were not made to be fragile. Somewhere along the way, you bought into the lie that ease is the goal. That you should chase happiness, security, relaxation, but all of that is empty if it's built on weakness. And deep down, you know it. You can feel it when you look in the mirror and see the potential you're wasting. You feel it in your gut when you make excuses instead of progress. That guilt, that discomfort, that's the real you calling out from beneath the weak version, begging to break free. Killing that weak version doesn't mean becoming heartless or aggressive. It means becoming disciplined, focused, unshakable. It means choosing what's right over what's easy. It means telling yourself, "I'm not negotiating with my limits anymore," because the weak version will always try to negotiate. It will say, "Just this once. It's okay to rest. You've already done enough." But the strongest version of you doesn't settle. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't need applause or validation. It moves in silence and delivers in excellence. And let's be clear, it's not about being perfect. It's about refusing to be okay with being powerless. Every time you make a decision that aligns with your higher self, you put another nail in the coffin of that weak version. Every early morning, every hard workout, every difficult conversation, every act of courage, it's all part of the process. You're not just building new habits. You're destroying the ones that never served you. This war is not won overnight. The weak version will keep showing up, trying to reclaim its territory. But the moment you realize it's not some external enemy, it's you, you gain the power to defeat it. You no longer play victim to your own patterns. You stand up, take responsibility, and say, "That version of me is no longer allowed to lead my life." If you want freedom, if you want power, if you want the kind of peace that only comes from knowing you gave everything, then you have to make a decision. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Kill the version of you that hides behind fear. Kill the version that avoids discipline. Kill the version that's okay with being mediocre. The stronger you isn't some fantasy. It's already inside you, waiting to be chosen. But it can't lead while the weaker version is still breathing. So be bold, be ruthless, take back control, and let that version of you die so the real one can finally live. The weak version of yourself thrives in the shadows of your doubts. It's the silent force convincing you that your dreams are too big, that you're not good enough, that your failures define you. It doesn't yell, it whispers, it shows up in indecision, it feeds on your hesitation. It persuades you to believe that staying safe, staying small, staying hidden is somehow a better option than stepping into your full power. It wants you to question your own potential, because the moment you stop questioning, it loses all control over you. You need to understand something. This version of you isn't your friend. It's not protecting you. It's paralyzing you. It's holding your future hostage, convincing you that discomfort is dangerous, that taking risks is reckless, that change is a threat. But that's a lie. The real danger is staying where you are. The real risk is waking up one day and realizing you spent your entire life listening to the voice of fear instead of the voice of power. Doubt is natural. Everyone has it, but the people who win in life are not the ones who feel no fear. They're the ones who refuse to be ruled by it. Every time you let doubt dictate your choices, you give away your power. You hand over the pen and let that weaker version write your story, but you were not born to live a life authored by fear. You were born to lead, to break barriers, to turn pain into purpose and setbacks into comebacks. The problem is not that the weak version exists. The problem is that you've been listening to it for too long. You've let it become familiar, comfortable. You've let it define your identity. You've confused the voice of weakness with your own. And now, it's time to separate the two. It's time to hear the difference between the voice that limits you and the one that empowers you, between the voice that says, "What if I fail?" and the one that says, "What if I fly?" Killing the weak version of yourself doesn't require external validation. No applause, no crowd. It's not about proving something to the world. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about making a promise that you will never again settle for being less than you were meant to be. That you will stop feeding your doubts and start feeding your discipline. That you will silence the voice that says "I can't" and amplify the one that says "Watch me." You've got to confront your inner critic and say, "I hear you, but I'm not listening." You've got to starve it of energy, of attention, of belief. Because the more you believe in your limitations, the more real they become. But the moment you choose to act despite your doubts, to move even when you're afraid, to show up even when it's hard, that's when you begin to shift. That's when the stronger version starts to rise. You've been asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking, "What if I'm not ready?" ask, "What will happen if I stay the same?" Instead of wondering if you'll fail, ask yourself if you can live with never trying. Because the biggest regret won't be the risks you took that didn't work. It'll be the moments you hesitated, the chances you didn't take, the life you could have lived but didn't because you let the weak version win. There is no future in fear. There is no progress in playing small. And there is no peace in being less than you know you could be. The only way out is through the discomfort, through the fear, through the silence of your doubts until they no longer echo in your mind. You kill that version not once, but over and over, every single day, by choosing the hard path, the disciplined path, the one that demands everything from you and gives back something far greater, freedom. The version of you that breaks limits, that leads with purpose, that walks with power. It's not waiting for some perfect moment. It's waiting for you to make the choice, and that choice starts now. Doubt will always knock. Just make sure you're not the one answering the door. The weak version of yourself survives because of the environment you've built around it. The truth is, we all create habits, routines, and mental narratives that either strengthen us or slowly erode us from the inside out. The weak version of you doesn't just exist in your thoughts. It lives in your daily actions. It lives in how you talk to yourself, how you handle failure, how you react to discomfort. And unless you disrupt that cycle, that version becomes the default. You cannot transform your life if you're still holding on to the excuses that broke it. Every time you say, "I don't feel like it," you feed that version. Every time you scroll for hours, knowing there's something more meaningful you should be doing, you feed it. Every time you let your emotions override your discipline, you feed it. This isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Because if you can't recognize the behaviors that keep you small, you'll never break out of them. Comfort has become a drug, and like any drug, the more you consume it, the harder it is to function without it. You get used to skipping the gym. You get used to staying quiet when you should speak up. You get used to settling for less because more requires effort, and effort feels uncomfortable. But guess what? Growth isn't supposed to feel easy. If it did, everyone would be unstoppable. Growth happens when you do the thing you don't feel like doing. When you show up regardless. When you start training your mind to obey your decisions, not your emotions. You cannot kill the weak version of yourself by motivation alone. Motivation fades. What you need is commitment. What you need is a system. What you need is a structure so tight, the weak version has no room to breathe. Build your day in a way that eliminates loopholes. Wake up earlier, move your body, journal your thoughts. Set your priorities the night before. Remove distractions. Discipline is not punishment, it's self-respect, and every time you follow through, even when you don't feel like it, you build trust with yourself. That trust is the foundation of power, and stop thinking change has to be dramatic to matter. It doesn't. It's not about flipping your life upside down overnight. It's about mastering the basics and doing them consistently. That's how real change happens. Show up when it's boring. Show up when it's hard. Show up when no one's watching. Because that's where the weak version dies. When you choose repetition over excuses, process over pleasure, principles over feelings. It's time to challenge the patterns you've normalized. You say you don't have time, but how much time are you giving away to things that drain you? You say you're tired, but are you really tired, or just unmotivated because you're not doing what fulfills you? You say you want to change, but have you decided to change? There's a difference. Wanting is passive, deciding is active. You don't get the reward until you take the risk. You don't get the power until you let go of the comfort. Your current habits are either building the strongest version of you, or they're keeping you locked in the cycle of the weak one. And the scary part, you won't even see it until it's too late, until years have passed, until regrets pile up, until you look in the mirror and barely recognize who you are. Don't wait for that. The time to act isn't tomorrow, it's now. Because every single day you hesitate, the old version tightens its grip. This is not about being harsh on yourself. It's about being honest. It's about looking at your life and saying, I'm done letting this version win. No more rationalizing bad choices. No more waiting for inspiration. No more lowering the bar because it's easier than rising to meet it. You were built for more. You know it. You feel it. But feeling it isn't enough. You've got to back it up with action. Every time you rise when it's easier to stay down, you weaken the grip of the old version. Every time you say no to temptation, you take back control. Every time you push through a tough day instead of making excuses, you build a new identity, and slowly, that weak version begins to fade, not because you hated it, but because you outgrew it. This isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily battle, but it's one worth fighting, because the version of you that's waiting on the other side, that's the version who lives with purpose, who leads with strength, and who finally knows what it means to be free. No one is coming to save you. Let that sink in. The world doesn't owe you understanding, empathy, or fairness, and the sooner you grasp this truth, the faster you take your power back. You see, the weak version of yourself clings to the belief that someone will notice your pain, that someone will step in, offer comfort, provide motivation, or fix the chaos. But that belief is a trap. It creates dependency, it keeps you soft, it keeps you waiting, it keeps you small, and most of all, it keeps you stuck. You have to decide that your transformation is your responsibility, not your family's. Not your partner's, not your friends, just you. Because even if they care, they can't do the work for you. They can't override your thoughts. They can't break your habits. They can't rewire your mind. That's on you. The weak version of you constantly needs reassurance, constantly needs validation, constantly needs to feel comfortable before taking the first step. But strength is built in discomfort. In silence, in solitude, when it's just you, your choices, and the mirror. The problem is, Most people are so afraid of confronting themselves that they'd rather live a lie. They'd rather stay broken than face the pain of rebuilding. They'll numb themselves with distractions, with excuses, with blame. They'll blame their past, their upbringing, their environment. And while those things are real, they're not permission slips to stay weak. If anything, they're the reasons why you must rise. The pain you've lived through, that's your fuel, not your prison. That's your edge, not your end. You want to become someone different, then you have to make decisions that the current version of you wouldn't dare to make. You have to stop doing what makes you feel good in the short term and start doing what builds you in the long term. You have to break your own patterns, the ones that keep you emotionally reactive, the ones that make you quit when it gets hard, the ones that seek approval instead of truth. You can't kill the weak version of yourself if you're still trying to protect it. So, let's be real. Are you willing to let go of the identity you've built around your limitations? Because some people cling to their weakness like it's a badge of honor. They've repeated their story of pain and failure so many times that it's become who they are. But you can't step into your next level while you're still defending your current one. There's no space for growth in a mind obsessed with comfort. You must choose between evolving and repeating. You can't do both. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. You will have days when it feels like everything is against you. When your body is tired, when your mind is foggy, when your emotions are screaming for an escape, and that's exactly when the weak version of you will try to make a comeback. It will whisper things like, "You deserve a break. Just this once. You've done enough." But that voice, that's not your friend, that's the enemy within, and it doesn't want you to grow. It wants you to settle. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You don't need more motivation. What you need is a decision. A real one, a commitment that says, "I'm done being a watered-down version of myself." A choice that says, "From this moment on, I rise." And when you make that decision, everything changes, because you'll stop asking for permission to change and start demanding it from yourself. The weak version of you is clever. It hides behind logic. It makes excuses sound reasonable. It paints fear as caution. But at the end of the day, it's still weakness, and it must be faced. Not with hate, but with clarity. Because you're not just fighting bad habits. You're fighting the identity that built them. That's why change feels so hard. That's why growth is painful. But it's also why it's powerful. You can either let your past define you, or let it refine you. You can either live life reacting to your weakness or building from your strength. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. But it's worth it. Because the moment you stop waiting, blaming, hesitating, and doubting, that's the moment the weak version begins to die. And the real you, the one buried under fear, excuses, and delay, that's when you start to come alive. That's when the real transformation begins. No one is going to hand you power. No one is going to give you the strength, the confidence, or the clarity you seek. That's something you have to claim for yourself. The weak version of you is the one who keeps waiting for permission, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the circumstances to line up. But that moment doesn't exist. Power is seized, not granted. Confidence is forged, not inherited. You have to become the kind of person who takes responsibility, not just for your actions, but for your mindset, your patterns, and your progress. The weak version of you doesn't want to be exposed. It wants to keep hiding behind fear. It tells you it's too late. It whispers that you're not good enough. It feeds off your doubt. Every time you hesitate, every time you put off what you know needs to be done, you give that weak self more control. And the more control it has, the more your life feels out of your hands. This version of you is not your truth. It's a habit, a pattern of thinking and behaving that's been rehearsed for too long. But if you're willing to step into the fire, mentally, emotionally, even physically, you can break that version of yourself. Because it only survives in comfort, it only exists in excuses, it needs your agreement to live, it's fragile, it's dependent, and that should tell you everything you need to know. If something inside you can be shattered by truth, then maybe it needs to be shattered. Maybe that version of you isn't worth protecting. You need to understand something powerful. There is no growth without confrontation. You can't evolve by avoiding the mirror. You can't become your best self while still defending your worst habits. And so many people spend their lives justifying their limits. They say, "This is just the way I am," or "I've been through too much," or "I'm doing my best." But deep down, they know they're not showing up at full capacity. They know they're playing small, and that knowing eats at them slowly, silently. To kill that weak version of yourself, you have to stop negotiating with it. You can't talk your way into greatness. You have to act your way into it. You have to show up on the days you don't feel like it. You have to train when your mind says rest. You have to speak truth when it would be easier to stay silent. It's in these moments, these micro decisions, that the new you is born. That's how strength is built, through repetition of right action, not perfect conditions. Every day you wake up, you have a choice. Either strengthen the old identity or step toward the new one. There's no neutral ground. Every thought, every decision, every behavior moves you in one direction or the other. And here's the thing. Most people are reinforcing the weak version of themselves without even realizing it. The content they consume, the conversations they have, the thoughts they dwell on, all of it is training. The question is, what are you training yourself to become? You have to start paying attention to what you're feeding your mind. What are you rehearsing mentally every day? Is it fear, insecurity, self-doubt? Or is it discipline, clarity, and courage? Your inner dialogue is a battlefield, and you can't afford to keep losing. You can't afford to keep reinforcing weakness. You need to speak to yourself like someone who believes in transformation, like someone who refuses to carry the past forward, like someone who knows that survival is not the same as living. There will be people who don't understand your journey. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're too intense, too focused, too serious. Let them. That's the cost of evolution. You weren't made to be understood by those committed to mediocrity. You weren't built to fit into a mold you've already outgrown. So let them talk. Let them doubt. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to become someone. And that becoming starts the moment you stop running from yourself. When you choose pain over pleasure, discipline over distraction, truth over comfort, that's when you kill the weak version, not in one dramatic moment, but through 1,000 quiet, intentional actions that no one sees. That's how you reclaim your life. That's how you earn your strength. And once you do, you never go back. Because once you taste what it feels like to live at full capacity, the old version of you becomes unrecognizable. It dies, and something greater is born. The sixth and final truth is this: the journey never ends. There is no finish line when it comes to self-mastery, no final destination where you can say, "I've made it," and then rest forever. Growth is not a goal you tick off a list, it's a commitment. A relentless daily choice to stay awake, stay accountable, and keep becoming. The weak version of you doesn't disappear in one decision. It hides in new corners of your life. It adapts, it evolves, and so must you. Once you've made the decision to kill that weak self, you will find that it reappears in subtler ways, in the little moments when you let a standard slip, when you tolerate disrespect, when you break a promise to yourself, even a small one. That's how it creeps back in, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, comfortably, and if you're not paying attention, it starts to take over again. That's why you can't afford to go unconscious. Not for a day, not for an hour. You must remain aware. Awareness is your armor. Discipline is your weapon and your vision. Your reason for changing is your compass. Every day you will face resistance. Every day the old version will try to lure you back into safety. But you must remember, safety is the slowest form of self-destruction. Most people die long before their bodies do, because they stop growing, they stop pushing, they settle for average and call it peace. But deep down, they're restless. They know something's missing. You cannot live an extraordinary life with an ordinary mindset, and you cannot build strength from a place of comfort. You need to create a new standard and protect it ruthlessly. That means saying no to distractions. That means holding yourself to the truth when it would be easier to lie. That means living with intention, not just drifting through the motions. The weak version of you wants to blend in. The strong version of you is ready to stand alone if necessary. If you want to be truly free, you must become dangerous. To your doubt, your limitations, your past, you must become the kind of person who is no longer ruled by fear. That doesn't mean the fear goes away. It means you move forward anyway. You act in spite of it. You build a new relationship with discomfort, one where pain is not something to avoid, but something to use. You start to understand that suffering is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It's the raw material of transformation. You can't become who you were meant to be by protecting who you used to be. You can't keep your old life and create a new one at the same time. Something has to die, and that something is the weaker version of you. The version that settles, the version that plays small, the version that waits. That version was never the real you. It was built by fear, shaped by others' opinions, and reinforced by years of avoiding your truth. This final truth is not about achieving perfection. It's about becoming relentless, showing up on the hard days, choosing growth even when it's uncomfortable, refusing to let your circumstances dictate your standard. It's about building a life that reflects your highest potential, not your lowest excuses. Every action, every thought, every decision must align with the version of you that you're trying to become. That's the path. And the moment you stray from it, the weak self waits to return. So you must live with urgency, not fear, not panic, but urgency, because time is not promised. Because every day you delay, you give life to the part of you that should be dead. And every day you rise with purpose, you suffocate that weakness and breathe new life into your strength. That's how transformation happens, not with a roar, but with consistent, quiet fire, the kind of fire that burns away everything false until only the real you remains. You don't need more motivation, you need a reason, a deep, undeniable reason to never go back. Let that reason guide you. Let it wake you up early. Let it keep you focused when others lose their way. And let it remind you, this is not a game, this is your life. And it's too valuable, too short, and too important to be lived by a version of you that doesn't reflect your power. So make the choice, every day. Every moment, kill that weak version, and never resurrect it again.